Welcome to another episode of 10 Tone Profile, Season 2, Cyprus 50 years later. Today we are at one of the most historical buildings of our community, the Cypriot community of Toronto at East York. Is that correct? Yeah? Okay. And this building has been here since 1980s. So this year it will be the last year. And by 2025, they will be transferred the building to a bigger space. And we are very excited to see how that's going to look like. So today at this episode, we have with us Dr. George Soleas. And I'm very excited to find out and hear about his personal experience with Cyprus in 1974. Hello, how are you doing?
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And I didn't realize that this is one of the last times that we will be in this building. We've got a lot of memories and looking forward to see the new building a year from now or so.
Do you remember the last time you've been here?
It was about a year ago. They had a really nice event that I attended, and the room was full with lots of good friends.
Nice. And is there any memory that you remember from the beginning of the Cypriot community era?
Well, I remember in 1994, I was one of the organizers of Cyprus and E10, which was 20 years after the 1974 invasion of Cyprus. And I would be here every week with a committee meeting, organizing, and it turned out to be a fantastic event, probably one of the best events we've ever had for Cyprus. And we had a Lambadophoria in Toronto at the time, and a beautiful concert at what used to be the Titania Theatre on the Danforth. It was all organized here in 1994.
Wow, that's a great story. I didn't know about that. Thank you for pointing that out. And what I wanted to ask, what it's after 30 years from 94, right?
All right.
What do you think has changed about Cyprus?
Well, sadly, to be honest with you, the Cyprus problem was fresh, and we were very active about the invasion for the first 20 years or so. And after that, I think many people have really not forgotten, but became a little bit complacent about it. So there hasn't been a lot of really good activity to continuously remind people that there is still an island in the Mediterranean, that it is divided, and there is a capital city, the only capital city in the world, Nicosia, that is actually divided, and that is not just divided, but it is occupied by an occupying force since 1974.
And why do you feel like it's not so much out there anymore?
Well, obviously, a lot of the people that have gone through this invasion are getting older. The younger generation has a lot of other things to worry about today. I think that there are a lot of huge problems in the world today, including the Ukraine-Russia war, what is happening in the Middle East. Really, there is so much disruption around the world that the Cyprus problem is becoming more and more insignificant to many of the people around the world. So it is really up to us to keep a very loud voice about it and to keep reminding the world that δεν ξεχνούμε, we don't forget, and they shouldn't forget as well of the injustice that happened in 1974 in Cyprus.
Do you feel somehow as Cypriots, Greek Cypriots, we have, without us wanted to do that, forget about what happened in 1974?
Yeah, I mean, it is our obligation, and we owe it to those who died then and to those who live today in Cyprus to do everything we can in the diaspora to be the ambassadors to the governments that the countries that we live in, to make sure that they remember what happened and that injustice somehow finds a solution. And I know that the Greek Cypriots are peaceful people. We're not looking to have a war here. We're looking to negotiate a fair, equitable, and sustainable solution for everybody on the island. Whether you're a Greek Cypriot or a Turkish Cypriot, at the end of the day, you're a Cypriot. It's an area where there is a lot of instability and a lot of disruption, and I think that Cyprus could be the litmus paper, the litmus test to begin a peaceful solution for the area, and a sustainable solution.
I'm happy that we start the conversation backwards.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel like it was a great opportunity. That also, it's very important that we are doing this interview here, and to basically have a feeling that, I'm here at this space, but we are not alone somehow. I feel that kind of history behind me. So,
Right.
And I want to find out, me and of course our viewers, a little bit more about your story.
Mm-hmm.
We know you within our community. We know you from your business side, but I don't personally know more about you. I don't, and I think many people they don't know your story.
Well, first of all, I agree with you. I think it's fantastic that we are in the Greek Cypriot community of Toronto. As I said, many memories in this building. I'm really glad that you have these flags behind us, because I stand for all of that. I mean, you have the Canadian flag, which I'm a very, very proud Canadian, and the fact that Canada invited me and accepted me to come to this country, it was wonderful, just like they do for many other immigrants from around the world. So this is really the best country in the world, and that's what makes me very proud. Of course, I'm very proud of the Greek flag and my Greek heritage, and of course the Cypriot flag, which really represents where I was born, and of course the European Union flag, which, as you know, we're all Europeans in that area. So it's fantastic that we're doing it here, and you have this background, for this segment of your show. Going back to my story, I was born in Cyprus. From a father who was actually Greek Egyptian, and he came to Cyprus as a refugee in the mid-50s because Nasser had at the time nationalized everything. They lost everything they had, and he came to Cyprus because he also had roots from Cyprus, but also from Greece. I met this Cypriot woman from Gerolakkos, which is a village right next to Nicosia, where the Nicosia International Airport was. Doesn't exist anymore. So I was born in Gerolakkos. I lived. I went to elementary school. I went to high school in Nicosia, and then I enrolled in what was called at the time the Hotel and Catering Institute of Cyprus to become a chef. And I spent 2 years at the Hotel and Catering Institute of Cyprus training. Every weekend I'd be at a different hotel in Kyrillou, in Famagusta, in Limassol. And then at the end, I did my internship at Ledra Palace, which was sort of a legendary hotel, probably one of the first hotels in Cyprus, very prestigious hotel, which unfortunately happened to be right on the green line where a lot of the fighting took place in 1974. And I happened to be at work at Ledra Palace when all that fighting happened.
And what age?
So I was 16.
16.
Almost 16. As you know, in July 15th of 1974, we had a coup d'etat from the Greek military junta at the time to overthrow Archbishop Makarios. So I happened to be working at the hotel, and because of the curfew that was imposed, I stayed at the hotel. So those 7 days from July 15th to July 20th, when the invasion happened, there was a lot of activity at the hotel. There were journalists from around the world coming into Cyprus to report on the coup d'etat. There were rumors that the Turks were going to invade, although at the time, the government that was installed by the military junta was saying to all of us that there is nothing to fear. We all knew that something was happening behind the scenes. Why are all these journalists coming to Cyprus? Why is there so much noise and so much in the news about Cyprus? And
have you ever thought how this will turn out on the 20th?
Absolutely not.
No.
I mean, even when I became a refugee, and even when I came to Canada, I've always felt that one day I will be going back to my house, my parents' home, our land. So, being inexperienced in such a conflict.
At a very young age, right?
At a very young age. And although, over the years we've had quite a bit of conflict with Turkey. As you know, in 1963-64, they bombed Cyprus. And then, since then, the Turkish Cypriot minority had left the rest of Cyprus and created these enclaves where they lived in. There wasn't as much conflict. I think Archbishop Makarios has always tried to create an environment where people felt the peace, and there were a lot of negotiations going on. I remember almost every month there was a different negotiation between Archbishop Makarios and Dektash or whoever, but they were all they were fruitless negotiations. And we've always felt that something is going to happen down the road, but we were always very hopeful that one day we will find a solution to live with the people that we used to live with. When I went to the Hotel and Catering Institute, we had Turkish Cypriot students. We had a lot of fun together, and they might have been a different religion, but we've all celebrated things together.
That's what I try a lot with this interview, to point out that before everything happened, we were all of us living in peace, let's say, right? So underneath those 7 days between 15 and 20, the things kind of they were boiling underneath, things that the many people they didn't know. But you are at this point of your life at Ledra Palace Hotel, correct?
Yeah.
And what do you remember on the July 20th?
Yeah, I vividly remember all of that because early in the morning, it was a Saturday, at around 5:30, we heard loud noises. They were basically bombing. One of the first places they bombed was Elvik, which was the Greek military contingent that was left behind since 1960 because of the agreement, the agreement that was signed for the independence of Cyprus, that Turkey and Greece would leave a contingent of 1,500 soldiers or so. So that was the first place that Turks bombed. They've also bombed the Armenian college. Sadly,
they basically target those spots. They knew where
to hit. But to answer your question, obviously we heard these loud noises. We knew it was coming because a couple of days before, we had soldiers that came into the hotel, positioned themselves. We had Philagia around the hotel because that was a green line. It's been a green line since 1963. So we've seen a lot of activity. You can make all kinds of assumptions as to why that was happening, protect us, or they had information that we didn't know. But there was a lot of information floating around at the time that Turkey was invading Cyprus, and people were actually seeing the military ships on the other side getting ready to come. So there was a lot of activity. But definitely July 20th, Saturday morning, that's when it started, and we knew that this was going to be a very, very bad conflict because we're a small island. Our army was very small. It was there just to protect, not to invade, not to occupy, not to fight, but to rather protect, the citizens. So it was, and then you could obviously hear the radio, and you could either hear the Cyprus radio or BBC or other radios, and you were getting a lot of information as to what was going on.
It was the right information? People, they were aware what exactly was going on at that time?
We were getting right information from non-Cypriot stations.
Oh.
As you know, at the time, the government of Cyprus was overthrown. Archbishop Makarios was forced to leave. We had an interim government that was put there by the junta. So what, in hindsight, what we were listening to was really not the truth. And that's what happens during a war. You don't really hear the entire truth. And it was sad because at the end we realized that the Turks invaded, and within days they took 21% of the island. And it's interesting that they took 21% of the island because that's exactly what they were asking for many years during the negotiations. So that was the first invasion, which happened July 20th. Second invasion happened on August 14th. Greece and Turkey were negotiating in Davos. The negotiations broke down, I remember, and Turkey just walked. The Turkish soldiers walked and took almost 38% of the island, and basically drew a line which exists up to today.
My question is, I'll take you a little bit back at the day of the invasion, the first part on July 20th. You have been actually at the hotel, right? Do you remember your feelings at that point? At a very young age, you've been kind of thrown in that situation.
Very sad, very scared of myself and my family and my friends and everybody else. We had casualties at the hotel because we had soldiers on the roof of the hotel, and one of the soldiers was basically killed. So to bring him down the staircases, elevators were not working. I remember a British journalist who put him in a car and took him to the hospital, and I found out subsequently that he actually died. He was agonomenos, what he's missing, but then found out that he actually died. We had injuries. I was asked to run from the hotel to the various phylagia to take bullets in boxes, so you could see running under the fig trees. Not the fig trees, the palm trees. You could see the branches falling down from the bullets, and then you just running under the bullets to take the cases of ammunition to the phylagia.
So you basically we
did everything we can to help. Look, we were fighting for our survival. We were fighting for our houses, for our people. I was not a trained soldier. I was not 18 at the time, but I did what I was told to do, and I'm proud of that. That lasted for a few days. At the time, my father, who was a clerk and an interpreter of the French embassy, had also stayed at the embassy, which was just a couple of kilometers away from Ledra Palace. So I managed to communicate with him. And the embassy, as you know, they're diplomats, they managed to create a convoy with the United Nations. And they were ready to leave the embassy so that they can get out of the middle of the fighting, which was really right on the green line. So my father said, if you can just meet me at such and such location, I can pick you up and then we can go back to our village. And so I managed to leave. At the time, they were cutting up the streets in Nicosia to put sewers. And they were all cut up and dug out. I was able to get in one of those holes and just run through it, so the Turks couldn't see me, because it was totally exposed. The Greek side on this side, the Turkish side on the other side, and they were shooting. So I managed to meet my father at a roundabout where the convoy was going. I got in the car, and we were dropped off at a specific location where my father had left his car. And then we got in the car and we drove back to Gerolakkos. So when we got to Gerolakkos, which is about 5 miles from Nicosia, my mother my brother, sister, and grandparents stayed in the village. Everybody else left, but my mother wouldn't leave until we came to the village. And she didn't know whether we lived or not, or whether we were alive or not. So, and you could
She's
see
been waiting for you to
She was waiting for us to get back. And as soon as we got back, we loaded whatever we could in the car, and we took off and went up to the mountains. A place called Ledra.
As many of the people at that time, they would try to escape to the mountains.
It's amazing though, Elisseos, because the village was almost dead. There's about 2,500, 3,000 people in the village. Everybody left. My mother waited for us to come back, and my grandparents. So we left, and then my father came back and picked up my grandparents and brought them up to the mountains as well. Yeah.
How long have you stayed there at the mountains?
So we were there until the second phase basically finished, which was after August 14th. And at the end of August, we came down to Nicosia. We had no house. Our village was occupied after the second phase of the invasion. We had nothing. We asked to stay in places, but we were refugees, so no one would actually allow us to stay in a house. So we ended up in a chicken coop. It was almost like a refugee camp. And every week, we would get in the car and go to this refugee warehouse where the Nicosia International Exposition was. And clothing and all things arrived from around the world, donated by people from around the world to find clothing, to find shoes, to find, pants and coats and whatever, blankets. So I always tell the story. We stayed there until December 4th. And at the time, my mother had a brother here in Hamilton, Ontario, who sponsored us. And the Canadian government had expedited the interview to become immigrants, to come to Canada. And within 3 months, we were able to get immigration status. And on December 4th, we left Nicosia by boats, made it to Greece. And then on December 6th, we arrived in Canada. And each one of us had a suitcase that we had to purchase. And in that suitcase, we had all the stuff that we collected from this warehouse, this refugee distribution center. And some of the stuff actually came from here, from Toronto. So I made sure that I saved one blanket that I will always have with me that came from Canada.
Do you still have that blanket?
I still do, yes.
Wow, that must be very emotional looking at that blanket.
It reminds me of what we went through. Of course, I don't just need a blanket to remind me, but it also reminds me of the generosity of people from around the world, especially Canadians and the Greek Canadians who I know, whether they were in Montreal, in Toronto, in Hamilton, they donated everything they can to help us out. And you can't really imagine how helpful it is when you get these things when you've got nothing.
And what struck me actually from your description is the fact that after the war, that you were on those kind of places that people there were camping basically and waiting. They didn't have their places anymore. You must have pictures on your mind of that situation of people after the war.
Oh, absolutely. Of the war, after the war, every day you would hear a bus came and brought back prisoners from Turkey, or they found so many dead, or so many missing people, or they're negotiating. Maybe there is hope that we're going to go back to our houses. I mean, it was sort of a roller coaster of a lot of things that were happening. And as a young kid, you always dream of really the good things, of what you think is going to happen next, or you see these nightmares. And I have a younger brother and a younger sister, and all three of us were together. So I always thank God that our family survived, and we didn't have any losses. I lost my grandmother because she died during the war. She became very ill. So we had my grandfather who stayed with us, and we had my father's mother that stayed with us. but it was tough. But we were together, right?
And that's the most important part of when you are facing such a dramatic incident in your life. I think you want to know that you're surrounded, your family, your friends, that they're all safe. Do you have anyone that you know that is still missing from your?
Oh yeah, oh for sure. I mean, everybody knows someone who's missing. My first cousin was married to. She was engaged to a boy that obviously had to enlist and never came back. I have a friend who's missing, who we went to school together, but he was a couple of years older than I. I mean, there are so many people that.
Remember their names?
Andrea was my cousin's fiance, and Evienios was my friend.
They're still missing, though?
They're still missing, yeah. I don't know if they found the remains, but up until a few years ago, I know that they were still missing, yeah.
What is your thought about the fact that we still have missing people that we never found out that what happened to them?
It's totally unacceptable, really totally unacceptable. This is the 21st century. What happened in 1974 was totally unacceptable and cruel and really, and we all know more or less why it happened. But there are missing people from both sides. Probably many more from the Greek Cypriot side than the Turkish Cypriot side. But there's still missing people. These are human beings that both sides should do everything they can to find these remains of these people so that there is closure by their parents or their loved ones. It's just ridiculous to me that this is not happening. Now, I know that efforts are underway, and every day when I read the news, I hear that they found these remains or those remains. But this is something that, you know, what's done is done. It's 50 years ago. Let's move forward. Let's sit down and make sure that we have peace, that we live together in peace. It's the right thing to do for us and for our children and our grandchildren. I know that Greece and I know that the Greek Cypriots want peace and want stability. Unfortunately, there is someone on the other side who, for some reason, is not interested in that. And neither the Greeks nor the Greek Cypriots have ever had intentions of occupying someone else's land or of invading and killing, especially today, 21st century, when we know what happened in Israel, what happened in Ukraine, what happens in many other conflicts around the world. We're smart people. We're civilized people. We're members of the European Union. We can live together in peace. And we can actually do much better together, in my opinion.
You make this interview so easy for me. Thank you so much. And thank you for the beautiful message as well. And I want to ask you something else about in regards of the fact when you came in Canada, December 1974?
December 6th, Nicolau, St. Nicholas Day, we arrived in Montreal and then flew to Toronto. My uncle picked us up. We lived with him for about a month, God bless him. And then, you know, we found our own place. I got a job because I was very marketable in what I was doing, worked in restaurants. In fact, I went to a restaurant and it was my uncle's restaurant. I said, well, you need a tuxedo. And I thought, what is a tuxedo? So they explained to me what it is. So I went to the Salvation Army. And I was able to buy a tuxedo with one of those fluffy shirts, a bow tie, and even shiny shoes for, I think it was about $10 at the time, which is amazing.
Which was too much back then.
Well, too much or not. I thought it was amazing because the tuxedo was way much more, a brand new tuxedo. But as you know now, I'm the president and CEO of a very large organization. And that our organization has over the years been very active in fundraising and in raising money for many different charities. And I always think of the fact that I, as an immigrant and as a refugee in this country, was able to go to this store and buy for $10 a tuxedo, shoes, a shirt, and all of that. And that was really the beginning of of my journey. And look where I am today. So helping out is incredibly important, even today. And as you know, today we have many people that come into this country. They have very similar stories to mine. And that's another reason why I am very, very interested to help out and to do what we're doing at the LCBO, where I work and the organization that I lead. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, this is a country where we have such an amazing diversity. And we believe in diversity and inclusion, belonging and equity. And this is something that I think a country like Cyprus should be looking at Canada, at the model that we have in Canada, and trying to adopt a lot of the things that we do so well in this country, because I think it would certainly help to bring people together in Cyprus as well.
Yes, I believe that's so, and thank you so much for bringing this up. And I think all of the countries, they should learn from Canada what Canada is doing and how Canada is helping. And
Canada is really Canada has set the example for many, many things. One of which is the diversity that we enjoy in this country. We don't just tolerate each other in this country. We celebrate each other. We celebrate each other's culture, religion, all kinds of different customs that we have. So it is really important for people to pay attention to what happens in Canada, because this is something that could actually help find a solution in the Middle East and in areas where we came from.
So I'm just hearing this inspiring story for me, and how important it is for those stories to be heard. And knowing you now better and knowing a little bit more about you, and what it will be something that you wanted to, as we're getting closer to the end of this interview, I wanted to ask you to, how, if someone is watching right now and he wants to hear something inspiring from your end, your story is already inspiring, but a message that you want to tell, because we're hearing a success story of which such a bad, basically, incident. The reason you left Cyprus, it was because of the war, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
If it wasn't the war, you wouldn't be here.
No, I wouldn't be here. Now, thank God I came to Canada, because it's the best country in the world. And again, nothing is given to you. You have to work for it. You have to be resilient. You have to be honest, good ethics. But Canada gives you that opportunity. And if you take that opportunity, you will get somewhere. Sure.
What though motivate you when you turn everything from a dark part of your life, you turn everything to a bright, basically ending at the solution of your story, basically your story. You turn something so sad to something so powerful, and you've become basically a successful business person. What was your motivation? That was my...
Yeah. You know, I've always believed, I've always been a hard worker, and I loved working. And I've always tried to take calculated risks in life as well. But I think what really helped me is the fact that when I left Cyprus, I had nothing behind me. So it really forced me to look forward. And I've always looked forward, because I knew that I have no other option. I can't go back to my house. My parents are here. This is a wonderful country. This is an opportunity. I looked at this as a phenomenal opportunity. When I came and walked the streets here in Hamilton, Ontario, I thought I was in paradise. You know, it was just, I mean, look, I came from a little village. Cyprus was quite advanced at the time, more advanced than Greece in terms of tourism and all of that. But I just found it so easy here. People were welcoming. It just made me feel that this would be a missed opportunity if I didn't take this opportunity. And I was able to go to school. The reason why I went to the Hotel and Catering Institute is because my parents didn't have money to send me to a university. So I thought it'd be great. By the way, thank God I went to that school, because it taught me philoxenia. It taught me how to work. It taught me how to work with others, how to be a team player. and it gave me a profession that I was able to use when I came to Canada to fund my education, to make extra money, to do whatever I wanted. So this is the beauty of this country. Look, I came here. I saw these opportunities. I went back to school, to high school, because I thought that I need to have the right foundations to get to where I need to get. I always believe that having the right foundations can propel you to succeed in anything you want. I had a passion for education, so I went back to high school, as I said. Then I went to university. I went to McMaster University and studied biochemistry. And then the rest of it is history. I was able to go to UC Davis and do my winemaking. I came back, did my master's and PhD at the University of Toronto. So I've always stayed close to my education, but I've always believed that I should have good relations, good mentors, and good people that I can use as sounding boards and that I can seek advice. So these are important things that I felt I needed to do to have an interest in life. I was also blessed to marry someone who's wonderful and to give me 2 children. And as you know, my wife is from the island of Crete. So I was able to keep my connection with Greece and the Greek community. And the other thing that I've done, Elisseos, and I'm talking too much, is I've never left my roots. I've never forgotten my roots. I've never really ignored my roots. I've always stayed close to the Greek Cypriots and the Greek community and the church, because I felt I am very proud of my heritage. And it doesn't mean that it's better than anyone else's. It's just it's mine, and I'm very proud of it. So I was able to upbring my children with my wife close to my roots and my culture and our customs as well.
Thank you so much for saying, especially the last part, because it was part of my next question, but thank you for pointing that out. And with that beautiful message, we close this episode, and I wanted to thank you so much for this inspiring interview and all the nice and positive messages that you're living with us today.
Elisseos, I want to thank you for doing this because it is incredibly important not to forget what happened in Cyprus, but it's also incredibly important to remember that we've got 2 people in Cyprus that can live together. It's really up to us to make sure that we live in peace and we put the past behind us. Well, we can't forget history, but we can't live by hating because there is so much more that we can do together. There are so many opportunities for the Greek and the Turkish Cypriots in Cyprus to make that island not only paradise, but also an example of the rest of the Middle East there. In terms of how people can live together in peace. And I hope that people are listening to that. And I hope that the politicians of both sides are listening to this, and they're doing everything they can. And I know that it's not only up to them, but it is also up to politicians like our Prime Minister in Canada and politicians in the United States and elsewhere. But it's people that vote these politicians. And we can send a very strong message to everybody that we are prepared to live together. Let's make it happen.